Okay, so we are going to get started here. Goati kaitawa haupa. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this morning's webinar session, Building Tourism into Tribal Agricultural Programs. My name is Bianca Mitchell. I am from the Pueblo of Acoma, and I am Ianta's Education Manager. I'll be serving as today's webinar moderator and managing the questions and answers at the end of the presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with Ianta, for nearly 2 decades, Ianta has served as the national voice for American Indian nations engaged in cultural tourism. In addition to serving as the voice for Indian country tourism, Ianta provides technical assistance and training to tribal nations and native-owned enterprises engaged in tourism, hospitality, and recreation. Ianta's mission is to define, introduce, grow, and sustain American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism that honors traditions and values. In addition to webinars like this, in partnership with the George Washington University's International Institute of Tourism Studies, Ianta presents an online cultural heritage certificate program designed to help tourism professionals and tribal planners hone their cultural tourism skills. The program will run from January 11th through February 28th, 2021. Registration is open and available on our Ianta website. Ianta also provides educational opportunities for tribes through our annual American Indian Tourism Conference, or AITC. We had a great lineup of speakers and presenters at this year's 22nd annual AITC, and it was our first ever virtual conference. The 2021 AITC event will be held in Fort McDowell, Arizona at the Wecopa Casino Resort on October 25th through the 28th of 2021. Please visit our website at ianta.org to learn more about our education program offerings, and at ianta.org/AITC for additional information on registration for the 23rd Annual American Indian Tourism Conference. So I just want to reiterate to you today, the webinar that you are here participating in, you will learn what agritourism is and how it can benefit Indigenous farmers and ranchers and their communities. We have Lisa Chase from the University of Vermont, who will present research on growing agritourism industry throughout the US, along with resources and opportunities for tribal producers. She'll also share information on joining the growing network of American farmers, ranchers, researchers, tourism experts, and other agricultural providers at the International Workshop on Agritourism held in Burlington, Vermont in 2021. Dr. Trevin Lane from Washington State University Extension will share success stories and lessons learned from leading agritourism programs in Oklahoma and Washington. And also with us is LaTosha Redhouse of American Indian Foods. She will present information about the association's work with Indigenous food producers and chefs and how tourism can support Indian food producers. So I'd also like to thank our partner, the Native American Agricultural Fund, for supporting today's webinar sessions. Okay, so before we get started in the introductions of our panelists here, I do want to ask a poll question. Okay, so let's go back to, sorry about that. Okay, so the first question is, describe yourself and check all that apply. So I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. Again, you are in the webinar, Building Tourism into Tribal Agricultural Programs. And our first poll question is asking you to describe yourself and check all that apply. Okay, we'll just give you a few seconds. All right. I will end the polling in about 10 seconds. Okay, we're going to end the poll and I will share those results with you. So tourism professionals, we have a lot attending today's session. Okay. And then the next question we have is, how often do you work with agritourism? Go ahead and answer that question. Again, how often do you work with the agritourism? Give you a few seconds here. We do have 61 attendees viewing right now. The majority of you have answered the question. Okay, it looks like we'll end the poll now. And we're sharing the results. Not yet, but planning in the future. Great, thank you for participating in that. Okay. So our first speaker is Lisa Chase, and she is the extension professor at the University of Vermont and director of the Vermont Tourism Research Center. Lisa is the natural resource specialist for the University of Vermont. Her research and outreach focus on the intersection of tourism, food systems, community vitality, and working landscapes. During the past 18 years, she has worked with farmers, food entrepreneurs, and tourism businesses throughout Vermont and around the world. She co-authored the book Food, Farms, and Community, Exploring Food Systems, and is the conference chair of the International Workshop on Agritourism, which again will be held in Burlington, Vermont in August 2021. Before moving to Vermont, she conducted research and outreach in New York, Colorado, Costa Rica, and Ecuador, among other places. Lisa is looking forward to the opportunity to share her work on agritourism with IENTA and explore opportunities for collaboration. So at this time, please welcome Dr. Lisa Chase.
Thank you so much, Bianca. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about agritourism and learn more about the work that all of you are doing with agritourism. Since we've been tossing this word around, agritourism, I thought we should start out by just touching base about what is agritourism anyway. And the reason why I bring it up is because there's a lot of different definitions and different uses and different meanings. And I just thought it would be helpful to all get on the same page. There's some definite agreement that the core of agritourism, which is what you see in the center of this graphic here, is on-farm experiences and product sales that are deeply connected to agriculture. So, for example, overnight farm stays or harvest festivals that take place on farms, pick your own apples and berries, dinners on a farm using local product, educational field trips. There's great agreement that that is authentic, high quality agritourism. The part where the disagreement occurs is when things happen on a farm that aren't really connected to agriculture. You know, say it's a concert or a birthday party on a farm, or when things connected to agriculture take place but not on a working farm. For example, a farmer's market or a agricultural county fair. And I don't want to get into the weeds of the disagreement, even though I'm coming from an academic institution, University of Vermont, and there are plenty of people all over the US and around the country actually who are fiercely debating, you know, for policy reasons or regulatory reasons, what actually is included as official agritourism and what isn't. I don't want to get into the weeds of that and just say we're using the term pretty loosely and broadly here, as agritourism is when farmers and visitors and their communities come together and interact. And there are 5 different categories of agritourism that overlap. Direct sales of farm products is a big one, along with education, hospitality, entertainment, and outdoor recreation. I'm trying to advance to the next slide. Let's see. Bianca, can you help me out here? Oh, there we go. I don't know if I did it or you did it. I'll try next time. So looking at this next slide and thinking about those 5 different categories of agritourism, here we see a breakdown where the experience piece, event and recreation, as well as education and experiences, are about 80%, or estimated to be about 80% of global agritourism. And about 20% is the direct market sales of local food products. Now, I will point out that this study, which is a global agritourism study, happened before the pandemic, and a lot has changed since then, as we all know and are experiencing daily. So I'm going to share these numbers with you from research that happened before the pandemic, and I'll share some other more current numbers with you in a moment. But for now, let's say this report estimated that in 2018, the global agritourism market was almost $6 billion, and it was growing at the impressive rate of 12% per year, which would bring it to almost $13 billion in 2025. We'll have to check back in 2025 and see how accurate that is. But I want to share these global numbers, and now I'm going to move on to US numbers, and keep this chart here that talks about the breakdown with only about 20% in direct market sales. Keep that in mind. Here on the left, we see what's going on in the US. And here is a similar chart looking at direct sales of food as encompassing 3/4 of the US market for agritourism and direct sales. And this is off-farm as well as on-farm sales. And these are US, if anyone's wondering where the numbers come from, the sources are below. This is USDA Census of Agriculture. So only about 1/4 of the sales are coming from experiences that's been counted here, and about 3/4 are from direct sales in the US, and it's a big amount of $3.7 billion. And to me, what that says is the effects of the pandemic may be a little different in the US than globally, and also there's great opportunity for growth on the experience side. We're estimating about 150,000 farmers and ranchers throughout the country are involved in agritourism and direct sales. And as you see on this map here, the darker the color, the more agritourism and direct sales. It's everywhere throughout the US. There are some concentrations in the Northeast and in the Southwest, but any state that you look at, you'll find areas of agritourism. Nope, wrong way. Now I'm moving on to a US map that is actually what's going on now with tourism. So these numbers and the numbers I was looking at before, those are pre-pandemic. Here's what's happened to tourism jobs since the pandemic. This is a map of decreases in tourism jobs between February and August of this year. And the lighter the color, the harder hit the state is. So you can see that certain states that don't rely too heavily on tourism, like Oklahoma and Indiana, for example, they're doing all right. Other states like Hawaii and where I'm from in Vermont, our tourism industries have been very hard hit, especially because we're relying on long distance travel from other states and other countries for a substantial part. One of the big changes that we've seen during the pandemic has been a focus on local food and local travel. So while this map here has a pretty grim view of what's going on with tourism around the country, the reality when we look at agritourism may be a little different. And I wish right now I could show you a map of what's going on with agritourism, but we don't have those numbers yet. So instead, I'm going to ask Bianca to share another poll and ask you what's going on with tourism in your community. The poll question, which should show up in a moment, is how is the COVID-19 pandemic impacting agritourism, including direct sales of farm products in your community? So whether it's your business, I know many of you mentioned that you're involved in agritourism already, or whether it's your community or even as a consumer. At the top here, it's awful, it's terrible, it's having a hugely negative impact. In the middle, no impact, and down at the bottom, a substantial positive impact. Or maybe you're seeing some sort of mix, all of the above. And I'll let Bianca can see how quickly the responses are coming in. So I'll let Bianca decide how much time to leave this up and when to share the results.
So we have some still participating. Again, the poll question is up. I'll give it a few more seconds, okay, and then we'll end it.
Yes, and as you're filling it out, think about the full scale of agritourism, from local food that you can buy directly to the experiences. So a moderately negative impact is the winner here. And we're seeing a little bit in all of the categories, less positive. What's been interesting, and this is anecdotally, we're still connecting the hard numbers, is what's been interesting in Vermont is to see that some of the farms that are mostly focused locally, so whether it's selling products direct from their farm, or whether it's, say, you pick apples or berries, those farms have actually been doing pretty well with the pandemic. And something to keep an eye on is that post-pandemic, when we're finally able to travel freely again, there's great optimism for the future of agritourism, because it is probably going to be a while before travelers feel comfortable packing closely in indoor spaces, and they're going to be looking for healthy, outdoor, safe activities, of which agritourism is all about. Let's see, I'm trying to move to the next screen here. Let's see if I can, uh-oh, Bianca, I'm stuck again. Can you, there we go. Oh, went too far. I don't know if that's me or you. Can you go back one slide? Okay, thank you. So for those of you who are farmers, ranchers yourselves, or are working with farmers and ranchers, I want to point out this, whether it's to deal with COVID impacts, or whether you're thinking about getting started in agritourism, or looking at safety, liability, regulations, whatever issues are coming out, I want to point out that there's a website that has quite a few resources that we run out of the University of Vermont. And AANTA has a tremendous amount of resources that are super helpful on their website as well. Can I have the next slide, Bianca? Thank you. And earlier, Bianca had mentioned that we're also in the process of developing an international agritourism network. This was launched back in 2018, just under 2 years ago. In Italy, the first World Congress on Agritourism was held. And I was fortunate to be able to attend and represent the University of Vermont and share what we have going on with agritourism in Vermont, and also learn a lot from, there were 42 different countries represented. So I was able to learn a lot about what's going on with agritourism around the world and bring it back to Vermont. And I was expressly told by some of the farms I work with and some of my colleagues in Vermont to try to get the conference to come to Vermont, the next one. After some tough negotiating with the Italians, who always wanted the conference to take place in Italy, we were successful in getting to hold the next international conference on agritourism in Vermont. And it was actually supposed to take place this very week. Clearly, the pandemic put a stop to that, and we have postponed it till 2021, when hopefully we'll be able to gather in person. And in the meantime, let's see. Can you move forward one more slide? Thank you. In the meantime, what we've done is launch a series of virtual gatherings, sort of like this one. We've got one each month. We started them in September. And we're going through to May, and we're looking at a whole variety of different topics. And the next one that's coming up will be on November 19th, and we're focused on Indigenous and tribal perspectives in agritourism. One of our featured speakers will be Sherry from Ayanta, and we're also going to be hearing from Indigenous leaders and entrepreneurs in Guatemala and Bolivia. And our moderator for that session will be Trevin Lane, who you are now going to hear from. So I'll turn it over to Bianca and Trevor, and thank you very much.
Okay, so yes, we have our next speaker, Dr. Trevin Lane. Trevor is an award-winning and published associate professor and state specialist in agritourism and community narratives through the use of video storytelling. His work supports small farms or ranches, small business ecosystems, and coordinating community resilience programs. He serves as a state specialist in community and economic development for Washington State University Extension. His leadership links scholarly and academic research to solving problems in and supporting the needs of tribal and rural communities while leveraging innovative technologies to achieve success. Successes led to the National Achievement Award by the National Association of County Agricultural Agents. At this time, let's welcome Trevor Lane.
Thank you, Bianca. Good morning, everybody. I want to make sure I start this and preface this presentation with the fact that I'm not speaking for any tribes. Tribes are perfectly capable of doing that on their own, and I'm not endorsing any specific tribe. What you're going to see here is research from the promising practice of agritourism. I've spent years working on understanding this promising practice, and the information I'm going to share is mostly from that research. And then we're going to share some success stories that I found through environment scans in my research from specific tribes. But that having been said, I just want to show you all the, if it'll forward here.
Go ahead and take control of the mouse, Trevor.
It says I'm controlling, and it's not letting me control. Bear with me here. There we go. So this is what we're going to learn today, and I try not to read slides to people because we're perfectly capable of reading, but this is what we're going to cover. And I want to talk a little bit about Washington's agriculture ecosystem. So Washington has a $49 billion food and agriculture industry. It accounts for approximately 13% of the state's economy. Every region in the state has some level of agricultural output, and we produce more than 300 different commodities commercially every year. Washington leads the country in production of 10 different commodities. And in addition to apples, which account for 70% of the US supply, the list includes sweet cherries, pears, red raspberries, hops, and green peas that are all processed here in Washington as well. There are significant shellfish and fishing operations on the west side, and several of the larger operations are also tribally owned and operated. Agriculture and food industries employ about 160,000 people, including 45,000 specifically in the food processing industry. There are approximately 37,000 farms, small to mid-sized farms throughout the state of Washington. And they include everything from livestock to the different products and crops that we talked about earlier. We're the second largest producer of premium wines in the US, and we have more than 800 licensed wineries that host tours, bed and breakfast, and other education and entertainment opportunities for tourists. Successful operators, agritourism operators, are known to take advantage of the history of their farms, the natural resources on their land, and they have different unique methods and ways of producing added value products off their farms that they direct market typically to consumers. In the state of Washington, we also have about $44.1 million of the economy is specifically made by agritourism. And the top agritourism destinations in the country are number 1, California, number 2, Texas, number 3, the Pacific Northwest, which includes Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. And number 4 is Colorado and Arizona. They tie. As Lisa was saying, agritourism means a lot of different things to different people. So it's important to define what that means when you're talking about agritourism. Typically, it's the activity of bringing entertainment or education to your farm or ranch, or your food type of event like farmers markets, fairs, festivals, things like that. Although word of mouth and direct marketing are extremely important, they're finding that key influences in trip planning include websites, social media, and travel review sites. Those are the more contemporary marketing and advertising channels that agritourists rely on for their information. Understanding spatial patterns and competitive advantages is important, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of the success stories about how mapping and laying things out is important to telling your story as well as attracting people to your area. And just because you build it doesn't mean they will come. So keeping in mind spillover activities and the intersections with the narratives and the stories in your regions and connecting with other farm operators is critical to success sometimes. So how do we help our small farms and ranches in the state of Washington? The WSDA produces a little book called the Green Book. And the Green Book used to be a literal green book that we still print from time to time, but by and large, it's mostly online. And many states have something equivalent to this through their state-based ag agency. Barriers and challenges. One of the things that we discovered through my research as I was trying to understand this promising practice is that access to capital is very difficult. And when you get started, little costs can add up very quickly. And so it's important to make sure that you plan, map, think things through, and work within the community before getting started. Rules, regulations, fear of lawsuits also make agritourism challenging. And we're going to talk about one of the benefits here in the state here in a minute about how to overcome some of these barriers. But we passed an indemnification law in the state of Washington that I helped construct that precludes agritourism operators from liability. And then the last thing that makes things extremely challenging that I mentioned earlier is how these costs and access to capital can add up quickly. So the benefits, typically farms will see anywhere from $2,500 to $25,000 in additional revenue to their farm. We're starting to see cases emerge now where more and more farms are making more than an additional $50,000. And as popularity and awareness comes along, agritourism activities are important for having a positive impact on farm profits. And then the last thing is, as this becomes more popular, more and more states are protecting their agritourism operators because farming is hard work. And it also comes with a lot of risk, and just being on a farm is inherently risky. And so the states are taking extra measures to protect the agritourism operators because we've lost more than 3 million farms since the early 1900s, and maintaining our ag infrastructure is critical. So one of the success stories that I like to talk about is Ferry County, where I come from and where we lived for quite a while. And, you know, people move there to be off the grid. It's very remote. It's a frontier community, and they're very private, and they don't like people coming onto their farms without being announced. And when I put this map together and worked to bring all of these agritourism operators together, people were actually shocked. And what I found is farmers are very quick, if they understand what's going on, to want to make some extra money. And so we mapped it all out, and this map helped a lot of the farmers work with each other, as well as to better understand the area. And now we're working with surrounding counties and tribes to try and expand this work and improve the map and then make it more publicly available. But collaboration, communication, and cooperation is critical. And I would argue and advocate that Extension can play an extremely helpful role in bringing your farms and your maps in your community together. One aspect of agritourism are farms, on farms and festivals and fairs. And the Maka tribe here in Washington, they do a really good job of inviting tribal members home for a homecoming, where they reunite with each other and other tribes in the area, as well as some of the First Nations from Vancouver Islands in Canada. Some family members are closely related to the Maka tribes in the surrounding areas. And so they come together in a public event to, they have canoe races, bone games, kids races. There's a royalty salmon bake. They have traditional dancing, a talent show, and a multitude of vendors and a fireworks display that brings folks together from all across the country. The tribes also have public tours, and they invite the public in to see their operations around fisheries and hatcheries. They're getting more and more sophisticated in terms of how they offer those, when they offer those. And believe it or not, school districts will actually pay to send their kids on tours. And so I encourage tribal and rural communities to work with local school districts in the area and the region to educate and entertain and create more awareness as to what they're doing. One of my favorite agritourism, ecotourism locations is in the heart of Cherokee Nation. They have a heritage center where they grow crops. I don't know what they've done during the COVID pandemic, but in Oklahoma, where I'm from, Tahlequah has a heritage center in a traditional village where they cover the food, the culture. I know one year we got to see some crops that had been grown. They teach beading classes. And there's a link there in the PowerPoint for folks if they want to go back and watch the video at a later date. Another example of great agritourism offerings, education, and entertainment is the Choctaw Nation. They actually provide tribal members with direct marketing support, workshops. They have field days for the public. They do on-farm research, a variety of different demonstrations. One of the things that they've recently become very well known for is their direct marketing of pecans. And the story that go with their pecans is just, it's fascinating. It's an amazing little story. But the tribes actually provide farm and ranch education, and then they support tribal members with value-added marketing for their products. And we're starting to see more and more tribes in the state of Washington collectively work with Extension to actually develop their own ag departments and their own ag planning across multiple regions. It's interesting to watch this work unfold. So some of the elements that we see in success of almost any programmer here, but specifically to help tribes, I recommend that tribes start thinking about their own agriculture departments and agritourism support for tribal members, helping tribal members tell their story and craft the message. Traditional media, public relations versus new media is an important thing and an extremely critical aspect of how people get their information and plan their trips now. I encourage people to look at partnerships, sponsorships, and other collaborations in the area, as we discussed with mapping and geospatial relationships. And then you should always ask your local extension office for more information and support, but I'm also a very biased extension agent, love what I do and love to help people. And I'm finding many of my colleagues do as well. And then get involved with IANTA and local tourism or state-based organizations and events, because they'll connect you to different resources for marketing and advertising, as well as help with overcoming the rules and regulations in your area. And on that note, thank you very much. I'm both honored and humbled to be here today.
Thank you, Trevor. So our next speaker for today is LaTosha Redhouse. She is with the American Indian Foods and is a member of the Cherokee Nation and was raised in southeastern Utah. She graduated with her Bachelor of Science in Journalism with an emphasis in corporate communications at Utah State University. She has spent years supporting organizations with marketing strategies and guidance, and is excited to serve the Native American farmer entrepreneurs and business owners. Her passion is to inspire Indigenous professionals and offer solutions to help grow their business. Please welcome LaTosha Redhouse. Redhouse, yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Bianca. I know that's like a tricky first name and last name sometimes, but my name is LaTosha Redhouse. I am the Intertribal Agriculture Council's American Indian Foods Program Director. I've been with IAC for over a year now, and between phone calls, emails, and Zoom and Google Hangout meetings, and the becoming more frequent, like the mom, I'm hungry cues from my remote learning kiddos, I've been thinking of how I dreamed of kicking off the year traveling all over the world, meeting producers, buyers, and participating in trade shows and in-person conferences. This year was the year I was hoping to experience the Intertribal Food Summit in person, go and visit with the IANTA crew during their conference, visit operations, walk through farms and ranchers, and possibly test my speed in unloading and loading hay. I'm not sure if I still have the muscle capacity, but it would just been nice to be right there side by side with producers and getting to know them. I don't want to go through all of the, shoulda, wouldas for 2020, but I do want to put this out there. Let me see. Okay, there we go. Hopefully it doesn't jump on me. I am so proud of the resiliency of the American Indian Alaska Native producers, harvesters, foragers, and agriculturalists. Even through the chaos and uncertainty, our members and members that I get to work with and our partners swiftly pivoted or reorganized to best reorganize their businesses to best approach the pandemic head on. And I am thrilled to work with these phenomenal and strong individuals. Our producers stepped up to make sure their communities were fed and supported, their relatives by any means possible. It's really exciting that a few of our producers had donated products to other reservations to ensure their relatives are fed. So again, I'm just proud of the overall opportunity to work closely with these incredible people. Great. So Bianca did share some information about who I am. I did grow up in the small town of southeastern Utah, or San Juan County. For those Navajos that are out there, it's also known as Abitibi. I attended Utah State University and got to selfie with Lethal Weapons dude. So I pretty proud of that. I think that was the pride moment of graduating. I was excited to move from home and experience life off the reservation. I didn't consider the contrasting environment between Logan, Utah and where I'm from. Logan, Utah weather is pretty cold, and I was that girl that was dressed in layers up until mid-July, and then winter picked back up in September. I'm a mom of 4. I'm a Resball champ, ask my husband. I absolutely love basketball. I'm a coffee enthusiast and a huge foodie. I love food. The love I have for food and culture, the love I have for my people in Native communities, and my desire to help Native businesses flourish are all elements that make making the work I get to do at IAC as the American Indian Foods Program Director so invigorating. You know that saying, you never work a day in your life if you love what you're doing, and I absolutely love what I'm doing, and I love the team I get to work with and the producers I also get to work with as well. Yep, so I miss my mutton. I miss the way Mama's mutton is made. So I had to throw in that picture there. Okay. So before I jump into, how we tie in tourism and how tourism could be a great marketing strategy for marketing producers' products, I wanted to give a brief introduction of the American Indian Foods Program and the Made Produced by American Indian Certified Trademark and how we help Indigenous producers market globally, market their products globally. The purpose of American Indian Foods is to promote and market American Indian and Alaska Native goods. AIF has 3 prongs that complement the work of other IAC programs like our Technical Assistance Specialist Network, our Natural Resources Department, and then also our Youth Development Programming. National Export Program is funded through the USDA Foreign Agricultural Services, where we offer international promotional activities held in the US, the EU, Canada, South Central America, and Southeast Asia. Our goal is to increase leads, engage with consumers and buyers abroad, connect with industry leaders, and provide continuous export education and training to ensure our members have the support and resources as they navigate through the global marketplace. The other programming, I feel like I have to, oh, there we go. The other programming, sub-programming under our AIF is the Native Food Connection, where we offer members domestic marketing exposure. Our team partners with Native chefs and Native organized events or other supporting members of Native agriculture to advocate 100% Native American or Alaska Native source menu options. This partnership allows AIF members to expand their domestic market while increasing their consumer base, but also allows us to, again, encourage and have other Native organizations or businesses rethink where they purchase their food. Last year during the 2019 annual conference, we were able to source ingredients and food from producers in our program to create this amazing plated meal or luncheon. And so like we had bison from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, salmon from Naknek, wild rice from Great Lakes, our Spirit Lake farms. And then we also had some veggies and other components coming from Quapaw. So it was really, really an amazing time. We also had Choctaw pecans. So it was just a great celebration to have all of these foods at a Native event because we're constantly pushing for, Native entrepreneurship, supporting Native businesses. And so when we're talking about Native businesses, we should also think about Native producers as well. And let's see if due to the COVID disruption and disrupting the in-person events and the one-on-one meetings, our program created a custom food box with select items from AIF members that we send out for again individuals to sample and for the purpose of educating consumers about the value and quality of Native foods. We are working on an online store. This can be purchased. Proceeds will support our programming and the Native owned food and ag businesses in the program. So we're really excited about this. We worked, again, in a further slide, I will share how this Native food box has helped us, again, further promote and market the producers carrying the Made and Produced by trademark. So we have the through our organization, we promote and market, we promote and market heavily the Made Produced by American Indian Foods trademark. The trademark certifies the authenticity of a product and symbolizes the culture, traditions, and pride that American Indian products represent. And so this is the trademark that we're trying to promote outwardly and encouraging our consumers to look for this trademark when they are purchasing from American Indian producers or value-added producers. And I'm wondering, I'm sure all of you are wondering, how does this all tie into tourism? I was asked to present information about IAC's work with Indigenous chefs and food producers and how tourism can support American Indian and Alaska Native food producers. Short time in this position, I've been engaging with consumers and industry leaders all over the world and noticed reoccurring questions. These questions are, who are American Indian and Alaska Natives? What is the value and quality of Native foods? And why should I invest in Indian agriculture when I could go and purchase pretty much the same product for a lower price at a Smith's or Walmart or through Cisco? So these questions kind of been reoccurring questions as we marketed abroad and globally. People are not really sure what American Indian or even Native American mean, or Alaska Native, or what does Alaska Native communities look like. So, as we're participating in these global promotional events, including trade shows and reverse trade missions, I think a good chunk of our pitch is explaining, trying to explain these core questions. And right now, for those that are participating, if you could maybe write your response to these 3 questions, and I'd love to see how you, as consumers, or if you're a producer, how you would go ahead and answer these questions. So we'll just give it a minute, seconds before I move on, and maybe I'll just read some of your responses. Great. So as we're waiting for anyone who wants to answer these questions, I'll just go ahead and move on and share an experience that I had in Hong Kong last year during a trade show. And again, during my short time with the organization, I was able to attend 2 international trade shows. And the one trade show in Hong Kong, we had all of these consumers and buyers stopping by our booth, wanting to know more about these Native Americans. And as we were talking with them, it was always this Hollywood version or this romanticized version of Native Americans. I remember one conversation where I was trying to share where I'm from the Cherokee Nation, and started talking, and I was trying to figure out how I could connect with this buyer. And so I mentioned Monument Valley, and he was like, oh yes, Monument Valley. So John Wayne, that was their connection to Native Americans. And I, American Indian history and studies aren't like pushed in all of these other international foreign countries. So it's our place to really make sure that we are educating these consumers. I did see that there was someone that answered. Great, someone mentioned the Native traditional methods, tribal communities and cultures. Great. All right, so as we started trying to figure out and formulate marketing strategies for producers and for our program, these questions, kept continuously being brought up and now have shaped our marketing plans for next year. And this is where tourism in all forms can help producers. We can control the message. Native Americans can control the message and control their narrative, rather than, again, playing into the stereotypes that are pushed upon us. As producers build their tourism marketing plans, you can build strategies to attract and educate. Attracting and educating are both equally important in helping producers strengthen their story, rather than just showing off how great the product is. That story really, again, builds that message and connection between the producer and the buyer. I know currently some of the Native communities are on strict lockdowns to protect their most vulnerable, and other places have strict social distancing requirements to protect their people. But that hasn't stopped producers, at least that we've been able to work closely with, from promoting and marketing some producers have focused on advertising their products through social media platforms. They've used social media to really tell their story and engage producers. And advertising activities include like virtual farm tours, virtual tasting events, virtual harvest days. I saw one company that worked with multiple influencers, and they all did like this roundtable tasting event where they were all able to kind of share their take on this product. And I thought that was so innovative. So our companies are engaging in continued service and innovation and promotion on these digital platforms to further educate consumers. I mean, I don't think with COVID, there's never going to be us going back to normal. And I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of our producers are kind of okay with that because we have shifted, like Lisa mentioned, you know, we shifted to more being conscious about our producers locally and regionally. And so, you know, it's been a change within the supply and demand, with supply and demand. So we wanted to share with you kind of these two pictures here. We partnered with an AIF member, Zibamizhuang Farms Marketing Manager, Rosebud Bear Schneider, and Chef Elena Terry from Wild Berries. We launched the Honoring the Farms, Foragers, Growers, and Producers Tour 2020 earlier this month. And through this collaboration, our goal was to have dialogue with producers and put faces to the products. Some of our producers haven't really switched to social media, or they don't have a website. And this was a way for us to showcase the product on AIF's Facebook page and NAFSA's Facebook page. We wanted to discuss and show the resiliency of producers and showcase the positive impact that when we all work collectively between Indigenous chefs, Native organizations like AENTA, or NAF, the Native American Ag Fund, the IFAI, which is Indigenous Food and Ag Initiative, or the NAFSA, which is Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance. If we all work together and then incorporate Native businesses, Native producers, we can all support each other economically. We can build assets that build quality for Native communities and control our narrative. And then ultimately, we can push for more of those agritourism, and we can say, yes, come visit Native country or Indian country. If you want to learn more or want to view some of these videos and interviews from the Honoring the Farmers, Foragers, Growers, and Producers Tour, or what we internally have jokingly called Rosebuds and Helena's Takeover on social media, you can find that on our AIF Facebook page or our Instagram. And you know, some of the other messaging was the oh, I don't know if it's going to move over. So I don't know, like, okay, there we go. And the other thing was the chef partnership. Again, part of the controlling the narrative and providing education, we found that who better to partner with than Indigenous chefs. They are creating these amazing recipes that also have some correlation to their tribal heritage, or their traditional, their connection to traditions or their culture. And so we definitely push to make sure that we partnered with these well-known, you know, these chefs that are really willing to support Native agriculture. We had in June, in part of the Intertribal Food Summit, which was held virtually and held in June, we partnershiped with the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance to showcase the work that has been done during the summer growing season by producers. This challenge, or this Indigenous Chop Challenge, was implemented to engage communities as part of our pivot and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It really allowed for us to continue that education. And we've been able to work with international chefs to create that dialogue between our Indigenous chefs and them, and so that we can do some kind of technical training or menu promotion. So it's been great. Part of that Native Connection food box, we've been able to send this out to like Chef Tanya Brandt or Sean Sherman, Brian Yazzie, these well-known, well-established chefs, indigenous chefs, and they've done these. On the right, you can see, you can see Brandt. She did a really neat Instagram unveiling of the Native Food Connection box. And these boxes vary in product, but it was a way for us to continue to market these producers even through this chaotic and uncertain time. But I will go to the next one. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Okay, great. So if you're interested in, supporting Native producers or wanting to sit down and figure out how you could build a menu, or you have a menu that you're looking to pull together for a future event, feel free to reach out, or you can visit our producer directory or our trademark directory, where you can find producers in each state. And we are also listing artisans as well, arts and crafters. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Yep, I think that was pressed as the next slide. Great. All right, great. So if you want to learn more about, or if you want to hear more stories from our panelists, our Native producers, we are gearing up for our virtual conference held December 7th through the 10th. The registration is up now on our website, and we're hoping you can join us. We'll be touching on various mission topics that are kind of like legal and policy, food systems, a couple of different tracks. So I hope to see you all there virtually, possibly. But again, that's coming up here soon. So, and I'll just end with my contact information. And I will thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ayanta, for allowing us to participate in this space. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your day to hear me ramble and try to joke. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for participating in today's webinar. We do have the email addresses to our presenters and for our staff here at Ayanta. So Gail Shihak is our membership and outreach coordinator. If you are interested in becoming a member of Ayanta, please email Gail and she can send you more information. Also, please visit our agritourism webpage at ayanta.org/agritourism, and I did put it in the chat box. We don't have time for questions as we have a couple of minutes here, but I do want to let you know that we will be emailing you all the link for the webinar recorded session. And the slides. I know there was a number of you that had requested the slide presentations. We will email those to you as well. And I just want to thank LaTosha, Lisa, and Trevor for taking the time today to join us for our webinar. And please, again, look out for our webinar series announcements. We will have them once a month. And if you have any questions, go ahead and email us and we will answer those offline. Again, thank you all for participating in today's webinar, and you all enjoy your day. Thank you.